Before we start this podcast, I want to definitely remind you of a sponsor for Fresh of the Word, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest. In the world of wrestling where there's hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads, don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. So if you'd like to discuss a possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or even Zubaz, then drop them a line at 20by20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. And also check out their enamel pin line. It's super cool.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what it goes. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it tomorrow. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddamn it, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddamn it, we so damn fresh.
All right, welcome to the Fresh of the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier, and we got a great guest for you this episode. We have David Howard Thornton. You probably know him as Art the Clown from the movie Terrifier, and he's also going to be coming to my neck of the woods for the Astronomicon Pop Culture Convention. Yo, how you doing?
I am doing very well. I'm excited about coming up.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. So, what have you heard thus far about Astronomicon?
Well, I hear it's going to be a lot of fun. I have been looking at some of the guests there. There's one I haven't been able to meet yet. I've been wanting to meet is Charles Fleischer, who is the voice of Roger Rabbit. That's like my favorite film of all time, so I hope I get a chance to talk to him.
Oh yeah, what's so great about Astronomicon? It's a smaller convention, but it's very intimate. So like everybody's just chilling there. So I'm sure you'll have a little bit of time to chop it up with them and talk to them.
Oh, hopefully so.
Yeah, it's cool. What you been up to these days?
Oh, a lot of filming. A lot of filming for Terrifier 2.
Yeah, without giving any spoilers, what can we expect for Terrifier 2?
Bigger and better. We're in the middle of filming right now. We're having to take a little bit of a break because our DP's his wife's about to have a baby in like a day or so.
Right.
I think she's getting C-section or something like that. So it's like, oh boy, fun. But yeah, we're about halfway done filming right now, and it's been wild.
Yeah. I watched the first Terrifier recently, and it's like a cool movie because it's a horror movie, but it's kind of silly, but at the same time it's filmed very well. What's been like? So what do you think is so cool about that movie?
I think what's cool about it is just the character of Art himself, because there's this nice blend of like horror and comedy together with that character, and I think that just makes him a very interesting character to watch. Just saying, he's like he's very charismatic, just kind of like how like Freddy and Chucky are in that way. So I think that's what's so cool about it. Plus we go all out. We don't pull back with the kills or anything like that. We show everything. So
right, those kills are crazy. I'm like, they're crazy. Huh?
Oh, you haven't seen anything yet.
I was laughing so hard when there's that in the first Terrifier when there's the the scene where the chick is being hung upside down, and titties are just flopping down, and then
Yeah.
Man, that shit killed me. I was like, I'm like, that was wild, man.
Just wait. This really awesome kill scene a few weeks ago, and I think it's going to top the Hacksaw scene just in brutality alone. It's pretty rough to watch, but it's really good.
How did you first get linked up to do this role as Art the Clown? What was sort of the process? What happened?
Well, I just lucked upon it, really. It's like I was in the middle of auditioning for a bunch of musical theater productions that all fell through. I was like in final callbacks for about 4 different Broadway tours, and all those fell through. And then I came across this posting. I had never done film before, but I saw this posting for Terrifier. They needed a tall, skinny guy that had clowning or physical comedy experience for the role of Art. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect for me. I have to play this role because I was already familiar with the role anyway from All Hallows Eve. So I was like, yes, I got to do this. And the rest is history. I just went in and auditioned and knocked it out of the park. I believe you can probably see my audition video online where it's like I had to improv on the spot a scene where I decapitated a guy. And it's pretty interesting.
Well, once you finally got the role, what did you do to sort of embrace this character?
Oh gosh, I mean, I basically just went back and watched a lot of old school horror films anyway from the 70s and 80s because that's the vibe we were going for. And so I kind of look at Art as being he's like a mishmash of all the great horror icons that came before. There's a little bit of everybody in him, from Freddy, Jason, Mike Myers, Chucky, Leatherface, Pinhead, all of that. He's got all of their traits. He's basically horror's biggest fanboy.
Right. So yeah, you mentioned it before that you were auditioning for these musical roles, and you were previously on the touring company for How Grinch Stole Christmas. How did you first get involved in musical theater?
Oh gosh, I mean, I was a singer before I was anything else. Before I was an actor, growing up, I was always singing in choirs, and I was a boy soprano for the longest time because I was a late bloomer. So it was that was a rare commodity back when I was growing up. So I sang all over the place. I could sing higher than the girls back in the day. It was just people were like, "Holy crap!" And I was like, "Yeah." Now I'm bass baritone, right? But I have a 4.5 octave range, so I can sing all vocal parts. So it's that's why I come from a family of musicians too, so it's just been in me ever since I was born. I think it's just something I was born with.
When did you first first get that inkling to want to be a performer?
I mean, I had done little bits of church theater and stuff like that growing up, but I think what really cemented it for me was when I was in 8th grade. I was bullied a lot because, like I said, geek in Alabama, boy soprano. I was really short too, and had glasses and braces. Wow. And I sucked at sports except for soccer, so it was I was an easy target.
Right.
And that year we did a production of Mickey's Christmas Carol in our choral program, and my mom was like, have any of these kids seen how funny you are? Because I was always goofing around and doing weird characters at home, and at school I was very quiet and shy. And I'm like, no. She's like, well, you should audition for the role of Mickey Mouse. You would be perfect for it, for Bob Cratchit. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I did, got the role. And we had this the performance we were doing, we had a mishap on stage happen where the set fell down on top of Scrooge and I. And I didn't stop. I just kept going with the scene and started improvising right there on the spot. And I had everybody in the audience just howling because I just started making jokes about the condition of the place falling apart, and while we're trying to put it all back up, because it's a cardboard set, so it wasn't really a heavy set. It didn't really hurt us or anything like that. But it's in that moment, I had the audience just eating out the palm of my hand, and it was this power I had over them, and I realized I was instead of being laughed at, people were laughing with me, and I was like, this is wonderful. I love this feeling, and I'm like, I want more of this. And that's I think that's when things really first clicked for me as a performer. I'm like, I like this. I like this feeling of being able to bring this kind of joy to people, making people laugh like this.
After that, what did you do to sort of like craft your skills?
Oh gosh, I'm a huge movie junkie, and so I was already growing up on like the classics, especially with physical comedy, because I love physical comedy. But that back then, when I was in middle school, that's when Jim Carrey first really became big. So I was a huge fan of his because I loved his physical comedy, right. And I'm like, I also like that same time. My aunt got me a box set of Mr. Bean movies and videos and stuff like that. And so I basically just devoured those. I would watch them over and over and over and over and over. And I'd always wanted to play like a silent character like Mr. Bean that was very mischievous like that. And it's just like, who knew, like, all these like 20 some odd, almost 30 years later, I'd be playing Art the Clown, which is a very Mr. Bean-like character, but a lot more evil.
Nice. When you go to like you do these these pop culture conventions, Comic-Cons like Astronomicon, what do people talk to you about?
Oh gosh, everything. Because I'm pretty approachable at these things. I usually go to the after parties and stuff like that and just hang out with the fans. So I'm like, I've talked about everything from like, religion and politics to the movies to just, sitting around and like having fun on people's phone apps, making faces and doing crazy characters and stuff like that. So it's just like, whatever. I just go with the flow.
Who are, you kind of mentioned about, with, Jim Carrey being, someone that you liked, who are some of your other people that you sort of looked up to when, trying to, work on your craft?
Well, definitely one of them is Doug Jones. I mean, he's always been like a great source of inspiration, right? Because we're so much alike physically, and we have a lot of the same styles. And so I've always kind of looked up to him as like, that's where I would like to go one day career-wise, be that character guy that, gets to play all these fun characters. And still, a lot of people don't know what he looks like, so he has a little bit of anonymity in real life, too, but people love his work. I'm like, I like that. And so he's one person I've looked up to and kind of modeled my career off of. But like another one I would say would be the wonderful man that I understudied for those 5 years on Grinch, Stephen Carl, who was he was mostly known for playing Rodney Rotten on Lazy Town. And he is just a wonderful physical comedian, and he really taught me a lot while I was his understudy. He helped me really fine-tune my skills that I had been developing my whole entire life. And so I said those two guys were a big, huge inspiration on me. That and I've gotten to meet Doug as well, and he's just a wonderful guy. And so it's like it's kind of like it's kind of nice learning from the greats in that way.
Yeah, at Astronomicon, you will be doing a pro photo op, dressed as Art the Clown. How much, how fun is that, to do that, at these conventions?
Oh, it's so much fun because I do it totally in character. I don't talk or anything like that. So I love being able to just mess around with people. I sometimes scare the crap out of people too, which is so much fun. Even if it's not people in line, I'll be in the elevators and I'll mess with people, or people are just sitting around in the lobby and I'll just sneak up behind them, scare the crap out of them. I love it. I'm mischievous that way.
Back when you first got the role in your first filming Terrifier, what was sort of the process that you were a part of when they were creating that look for you?
Well,
specifically,
the look had already been created, but I would say like more the process for me was like I built upon because another guy played Art before me. His name is Mike Gianelli.
Yeah,
and so I looked at what Mike had done in All Hallows Eve and really built upon that. And like one thing I really wanted to, bring more of an essence to was like, his name's Art the Clown. So I wanted to bring more of a clowning aspect to the character. So even though he doesn't talk, I want him, it's not necessarily mime, but it's more like silent clown work. It's just like, convey more meaning through the facial expressions and body language. And so that's what I really focused more on and wanted to strengthen more.
Right. What is it about Art the Clown do you feel like people have seen this movie like? What do you think is so special about Art the Clown?
I think what's so special about him is like you don't really know why he's doing what he's doing, but at the same time, you kind of get that he just enjoys what he's doing, and that might be part of why he's doing what he's doing. It's like he's not really doing this stuff out of a vendetta or anything like that. He's just doing it because it's fun for him, and he has fun doing it. That's why he has these little, make kind of little jokes, and he's very playful in that way. But he's doing horrible things, and I think that's what makes him so entertaining to people, because he's got that viciousness, but he has that playfulness to him as well. That just like you don't see a lot with villains that often. You look at Freddy, not Freddy, but Freddy's very playful, but like Jason or Mike Myers, they're very quick one or two hit kills and they're moving on. Like Art basically, he kills, but he takes his time with it and revels in what he's doing and relishes the moment. And I think that's what's so interesting about him.
Since Terrifier came out, what has been something that you've learned about being in a role like that maybe you didn't know before?
What have I learned? I would say more like I've learned that I have some weird thoughts in my head. It's like, because I have found that I now will be walking around and I will come up with new kill scenes. And like someone frustrates me in real life, and I think it's like, what would Art do in this moment? I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me?
Right. that is kind of a thing that I'm always thinking about, whether it's an actor or somebody, a writer, an author, when they're doing something that is like a crazy character or thinking up all these crazy characters. How do they sort of balance that while they're doing it? How did you sort of balance filming this character, and like not be weird like when you're not doing it?
Well, as soon as they say cut, I'm usually like the first thing I'm doing, especially if I'm doing like a kill scene or something like that, where something's very violent. I'm always checking in on my fellow actors, my co-stars, making sure they're okay. Because I've had to sometimes just absolutely just wail on people with weapons, and I'm literally hitting these people, even though they might have like protective pads on to dampen the blows, but I'm still having to hit them, and I am like, oh God, I'm sorry. But other than that, I'm usually just cracking jokes and stuff like that. I don't do any of the method acting with this character at all. So it's, I can turn it on and off. I think that's what kind of freaks people out, is like, I can be like, oh my God, are you okay? Or I'll be cracking jokes in 1 second. They're like, okay, and rolling. And my face totally goes back to being Art again. And people are like, oh my God, that's scary. I'm like, yeah. I can just turn it on or off if I need to. Because it's like, my thing is, how I've always been as an actor, is once I have an understanding of who the character is in my mind, I can easily just turn it on and off. It's just like a switch.
What have you done, like, in the film, in the filming of Terrifier 2, is there anything that you've done this time around to sort of, help get into the character more or whatnot? What was sort of the preparation for this role the second time around?
Oh, I would say a lot less preparation, because I've already played the character once, so I understand them a lot more, and I was very involved with the creation of the script this time around too. Damien and I were putting our heads together constantly, coming up with ideas for plot or kill scenes or whatever. So it's that there wasn't a whole lot of like prep work I had to do because I've been doing the prep work the whole entire time anyway. So it's just like I basically just roll into set. I'm like, which scene are we doing today? Okay, let's go. I don't have to sit there and memorize lines and stuff like that. Everybody else. And plus, a lot of times I just get to play around and just come up with things in the moment. Like the other night, we were doing a scene, and a lot of the stuff I did in the scene wasn't even written in the script. It just Damon sometimes just writes, Art does this. And like, Art just, it's just like he doesn't really lay out everything I'm actually going to do. So it's just like he leaves it there for me just to, when I'm in the moment and I see my surroundings, I can just play around with what's there. And that's what I did with this scene. And it was so much fun. So it's like, I guess my prep work is a lot of that is just, just coming up with stuff in the moment, which I kind of enjoy doing.
How often do you do that for these movies?
A lot. There's a lot of that kind of like improv work done. Now, sometimes Damien knows exactly what he wants, especially for the kill scenes. But like, I add little bits of flavor here or there just to spice things up a little bit more than just. So it's not just your typical kill scene, or there's little embellishments here or there that I like to put in.
What preparations go into, the safety part of that? You're just mentioning about having padding and while you're hitting these people, mm-hmm. and they have a little bit of a padding, but what sort of, safety precautions are put in place?
Well, when we have like these big kill scenes like that, where we have a lot of, stunt work being done, we actually have stunt coordinators on set helping us this time around. So we have the protective gear that they bring in, this, top quality stuff. We have the crash pads, all that kind of stuff. And so it's like a lot of times we'll have stunt doubles even come in, and they're trained to do some of these stunts. And so that makes it a lot easier. It makes my job easier too, because it's like they're usually more in control of like the situation than I am. That's what's really cool about stunt work, is usually the person that's getting thrown around and beaten up, they're the ones usually more in control of everything, which is not how it looks on screen, but that's how I've discovered it really is on these sets, and it's pretty cool.
Right. Going forward, what is some things that you would like to do, for, in your career? Is there anything that you have dreams of doing, or stuff that you're planning on doing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, like, my ultimate goal is to play the Joker somehow. Most likely, I would like to play him on like a TV series, so I could have more time with the character instead of like a 2-hour movie. I could have a whole season or two just to really flesh him out and experiment with him, because he's like my favorite villain of all time. But I mean, there's so many more things though. I mean, I love doing voiceover work, so I would really love to do more video game work and animation as well, and do some more musical theater. I'm like, one thing I've been wanting to have done for years is like a stage adaptation of Nightmare Before Christmas, because I would love to play Jack Skellington.
Oh, nice.
But, oh yeah, I'm still a musical theater nerd at heart, so I'm like, yeah, I haven't done musical theater in about 5 years. I miss it, but I'd still love to return to the stage somehow.
Oh, definitely. What are some of the musicals that you're a fan of?
Oh gosh, I'm so old school. It's funny. I live here in New York, and I don't get out to shows nearly as much as I should. But I'm like, I love like the classics, the Rodgers and Hammerstein, all that kind of stuff, Oklahoma, all that kind of stuff from back in the day, Music Man, up to like Les Miserables and Phantom of the Opera and all that kind of stuff. But like lately, I've seen some good stuff on Broadway. I saw King Kong last year. One of my friends was the understudy for Ann Darrow, and that was an amazing show to watch. Just like, because they had this big, huge, several ton animatronic Kong puppet that was like 30 feet tall, and that was amazing. I was like, wow. I love that, the technical side of stuff like that. I love that kind of magic on stage. I'm like, but I still want to go see Beetlejuice. I want to go see Harry Potter, all that kind of stuff on stage too. I'm like, I just like to be entertained.
Nice. I always like to ask this question of people, like, what's sort of a lesson or a nugget of knowledge from your life or career that anybody listening to this, doesn't matter what sort of avenue of artistry that they're in, could sort of project into their own life?
Well, the most valuable lesson I learned was when my mom passed away. Is like we had our final discussion with each other, and at that time I was studying to be an elementary school teacher. I was trying to be very pragmatic with my life, and as much as I wanted to be an actor, I looked at it this way that teaching was a more stable career, and I would actually have a stable income. And my mom said to me, she's like, you've been given certain gifts, and I would hate to see you squander those. It's like you only get one shot at this life, so don't do what you think you have to do with your life. Do what you want to do with your life. Go out there and live it. And those words really sunk in with me, and that's why I gave up teaching and decided to become an actor, and the rest is history. So that's what I would say is probably one of the most valuable things I learned was, do what you want to do with your life.
Nice.
Like live your life the way you want to live it, because you only get one shot. Why not make it an extraordinary?
Definitely. Well, David, it's been good talking with you. Where can people go online to get more information about, what you're doing, and if you have anything to plug, go ahead and plug it.
Yeah. You can find me on both Instagram and Facebook under David Howard Thornton. I used to be on Twitter, but I'm not there anymore. So that's where you can go. I usually post a lot of stuff, especially like upcoming conventions and stuff like that. I actually need to update all that kind of stuff.
Hey, yo, thank you for listening to this episode of Fresh is the Word, hosted and produced by myself, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. Empowered by Anchor at anchor.fm/freshoftheword. Intro theme music by Foulmouth, Shimmy Bango, and Knox Money. Fresh of the Word is available on all major streaming platforms. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. If you want to support Fresh of the Word, please consider pledging via Patreon at patreon.com/freshoftheword. Follow Fresh of the Word on social media on Twitter at Fresh of the Pod, on Instagram at Fresh of the Word Podcast, and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Fresh of the Word. For more information about Fresh of the Word and our other podcasts, Breaking Records and Renaissance Soul, and a collection of pop culture articles and reviews, please visit freshofthepodcast.com. Thank you for listening and your support. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.